This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John McElroy. Joining me today, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. We got to break it all down. A real letdown performance by the Detroit Lions. It was deflating for a lot of people. Not terribly surprising in that most people that really thought about it when the Detroit Lions entered the game at Gillette Stadium, they were going into that game beaten, battered, injured. Lots of guys entering that game not 100%. So to really think that they were going to win the game was going to be a stretch if you know football. I think everybody at All Lions and Detroit Sports Podcast weren't really that confident that the Lions were going to leave with a W. But again, when you take a closer look at a game, the game against the Patriots was deflating in a lot of ways because the defense played a little bit better, only giving up 22 points. Your offense gives up 7. And what happens when you need to call upon your offense? They lay a complete dud. And all the SOL narratives are there. Matt Patricia outshines you with a third-string quarterback. Your offense that's supposed to be the tops in the league cannot accomplish a single thing against the master of preparation in Bill Belichick. And the most important thing that I think now we're starting to look at, and I'm curious because I think it's causing a lot of people to say, man, I might need to close the door already on the 2022 Lions, is the fact that Dan Campbell sees the issues, knows that there's an opportunity to get points, yet chooses to go for it and remain aggressive on fourth down, pissing a lot of people off, being that now he doesn't even care about situations. He's like, on my side of the field, don't give a fuck, going for it. 4th and 9, don't give a fuck, I'm going for it. Okay, so that's where we're at. The Detroit Lions sit at 1-4 entering this bye week, which I think makes a lot of people happy because they can get a break this week from the Lions. But I'm curious, I get a sense in talks with my cousin that potentially the Lions have popped your balloon, bro. What happened?
Dude, I'm so over this season. So I wasn't even watching this game. I was driving back from Ludington, and I was listening to it on the radio. And I was hoping to get home in time to basically watch the second half. And as this first half unfolded, I was like, why am I even racing home? Like, what's it matter? I got it DVR'd. I'll watch it at my own leisure. These guys aren't worth me possibly getting a speeding ticket, aren't worth my time and investing it in them to watch. I'm done with this season. Like, at this moment in time, and I was having I was driving and texting, so shame on me, but I was driving and texting with my buddy, and he was like, man, these guys are horrible. I was like, bro, I'm done with this season. He's like, I'm shutting the door too. I was like, no, like, I'm done. Like, it's over. At this point, this moment in time, I don't necessarily care what happens. Just don't screw your draft position up. And that's horrible to say. We're 5 weeks into the season, and I'm talking about draft position. I'm looking ahead to what's going to take place after the Super Bowl. That's where we're at with this team. There was so much promise going into this year. So much promise. The offense, the number one offense in all of football resides here in Detroit. And you travel to New England, you travel to the Patriots, you're in Gillette Stadium, and you lay a dud. You don't even put up a fighter's chance. And honestly, I don't think it was the offense's fault. At this moment in time, I feel like a lot of blame has to lie on Dan Campbell. I feel like he neutered that offense, and when they had chances for points, he didn't take them. What was the point of bringing in a kicker and signing a kicker if you weren't going to use the kicker? Like, just don't have a kicker on your roster. Just don't. It's fine. If you're not going to use him, don't. Save that roster position for something else. I don't know. You could have used a couple of corners or you could have used a safety because those guys were dropping like flies in this game. So I'm so entirely frustrated by this season and by this team. Honestly, John, This felt like it was such a same old Lions moment, same old Lions team, same old Lions. I don't know. You put the word in next to it. It doesn't matter. It feels so same old Lions. You're traveling to New England. You're taking on a former coach. Tell me where you've seen this happen, where he's now a coordinator for a team. I don't know. Jim Schwartz? Jim Schwartz used to be your coach. He ended up going to the Bills, became a coordinator. They ended up beating you. They carried him off the field. You go to New England, you're playing Matt Patricia, who's now an offensive coordinator. The guy's not an offensive mind at all. On top of that, he's hamstrung with a third-string quarterback. And these guys are out there wheeling and dealing on you. And they beat you. On top of that, your number one scoring offense doesn't put up one single point. Doesn't even get you in a position to put up a single point. You have the best offense in the league, and you can't sniff the red zone? How same old Lions is that? To me, this game basically encapsulated the first 5 weeks of the season. Going into it, hopes incredibly high. Playing along in the game, keep constantly shooting yourself in the foot. Going for it on fourth downs when you really have no business going for it on fourth downs. Or going for it on fourth downs and just calling bonehead plays. And just not controlling and operating the game correctly. Only to then have the entire game taken from you and you're embarrassed. This game was the 2022 Detroit Lions season thus far. And I'm pissed. I'm tired of it, man. I'm upset. And you sent out a tweet earlier this week. I thought it was pretty good. I really want to like Dan Campbell. I really want Dan Campbell to work. I think he's a cool guy. I think he's a good guy. Honestly, at this point, I think he's a moron when it comes to football. I think his football acumen is basically that of my tennis shoe that I wear at the gym. And I think what you're getting is you're starting to possibly see the unraveling of this guy who I really do believe the Lions fan base wanted to embrace, wanted to ingratiate him, and really wanted him to work out. It just doesn't seem like it's going to work out, and it's his own fault. I wouldn't be surprised if this man moved on to another job, worked as an offensive coordinator, got promoted up to be a head coach somewhere, and was actually successful. Because players buy in. Players play for him. But when you keep putting them in bad positions, at what point does that wear thin? At what point do they not buy in and are they not going to play for you? At what point do you have to stop shooting yourself in the foot and shooting your team in the foot and taking games away from your team, or at least taking your team out of positions in games? Your job as a head coach is to put these guys in the best position to succeed, and I haven't seen it yet, and I'm pissed.
Yeah, no, it's very fair. A lot of people feel the same way online, the vitriol that's taking place. And we have to talk about it. You look around the league, Brian Daboll being 4-1 with the Giants, 3-2, Robert Saleh with the Jets. Teams are winning more games. Look, and see, I think when people say those things and you say, well, let's compare to others, we're not saying Dan Campbell needs to be 4-1. We're just saying play better, look like you can compete, learn from your mistakes, have a couple wins, be at least 2-3, 3-2 in that mix. Instead, why we believe it's SOL is you're already basically close to mathematically eliminated from the postseason. You're behind in last place again in the cellar of the division. So you're 5 weeks in at the bye week and you're staring at this uphill climb, and every third play, a guy on your roster goes down to injury. You're already starting 5 games into the season and you're benching Amani Oruwariye. And of course it comes back to bite you in the ass when a couple of your guys get hurt, and now you're throwing people that have they're very inexperienced and they can't get the job done. So it had the feeling of SOL. And for me, I was emotionless. I was just like, wow, this is bad. It's 6-0. Oh, Jared Goff fumbles. This is something that we've always talked about. And what stinks, cuz, is that, you and I have been doing this together for a decade, tweeting, podcasting, sharing insights. The fans want to have so much hope. They want to believe in something positive so bad that they'll live in denial land from now until the end of time. And I've come to accept that. I like that. Hey, if you want to be a fan and you want to stick to your guns and you want to challenge me and tell me that Jared Goff is the guy, that's fine. But when I come out and say, look, this guy cannot be the quarterback of the future because he turns the ball over too much. If you get into the postseason and he does this, he kills your chances. And what happens? Everyone gets blinded by the fact that they're scoring a bunch of points. They close the door on the idea that, hey, if Ben Johnson can work with Jared Goff at this point, what do you think he can do with a raw young talent and craft an offense? There's an opportunity for hope that somebody else who's more mobile, who brings a different skill set, who has a bigger arm, who does not have short, tiny hands to drop the football. What happens? Now, in 3 of 5 games, Jared Goff has fucked you royally. So it's not a surprise to me. I was kind of, like I said, emotionless. I was disappointed. My emotional state probably peaked when the Lions had the leads against the Vikings, and it was just like, this doesn't look good. So now Dan Campbell is taking this path where he says, hey, I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to be aggressive, and that's just the way it is. If I'm going to go down, I'm going to trust my offense. Well, that's what you get, is when it's 3rd and 2, you have a complete disastrous play that's run that makes it go back 7 yards, and then on 4th and 9, you drop the football and you completely turn it over for 7 points.
Let's talk about this. What business do you have going for it on 4th and 9? I don't know. That makes absolutely no sense. You're going up against a 3rd-string quarterback. He's a rookie, for God's sake. This is his first start. If you're in a position where your field goal kicker is not comfortable kicking a field goal, there's no problem with sending you've got arguably one of the best punters in the league. Send your punter out there, pin him deep. Pin him deep. Right. Make him go the length of the field. Put the pressure on him. Make him crumble. Make him feel it. Instead, you're going for it on 4th and 9. You're running an awful play. You fumble the ball, and it gets taken back for 6. Last week, you and I talked about style points when it came to the Michigan Wolverines and their football team. For the Detroit Lions, it's a little bit of the same. I don't need you beating teams for style points. I don't, because in the National Football League, it's all about wins and losses. But if you're going to lose games, you need to lose games properly. You need to look like you're competent. And there have been 0 style points in any of these losses. This team has looked completely incompetent and completely disheveled. And that's where I think mine and your criticism really comes in. I think it's kind of where we're raising red flags and we're like, hey, what the hell's going on here? Because at points last year, this looked like a team that bought into whatever this coaching staff was saying. I'm not saying that they're not buying in now, but what I'm saying is your head coach is putting this team in really bad spots regularly. And yeah, he did that last year. But man, we are 5 games in, and I feel like this dude has cost this team at least 2 games, possibly a 3rd game.
Here's the problem, is that right now he's fixated on saying, I'm not taking my offense off the field on 4th down, whether it be 4th and short, 4th and middle. Now he's doing it 4th and 9, 4th and long with an opportunity to kick a 50-yarder. So bottom line, what he's saying is, and it's head-scratching because you asked the question, why would you have a kicker on the roster if you're not going to use him? I truly believe he doesn't think the kicker can make it. He's not saying it publicly, but he's like, look, guys, I mean, if we gave him truth serum, he'd say, look, guys, we just picked off a guy off the street. Yeah, he can kick it, but it was outside, and I like my offense more than I like my kicker. That's just what he's going to tell you. Now, the crazy part is nobody in the organization, nobody is sitting him down saying, Dan, look, it's great. We know you like to be aggressive. We know you like the analytics. We know you're going to do this, but just try the field goal. And it lets us know, hey, okay, if this guy can't make a 50-yarder, now we know we can get rid of him in 2 days and just keep the carousel moving. We don't know nothing about the Money Badger. We don't know anything other than he played for the Bears. He's had 90 kicks or so in his career. We don't know nothing about him now, other than we see him in the locker room and you broomed out the other guy. You don't give yourself the full opportunity to evaluate what you got. And who's to say that the guy wouldn't have made the kick? 6'3", you're in the game. Maybe Bailey Zappi feels a little bit of pressure and throws you the interception. You never know. But again, it's everything that can go wrong ends up with the Lions and why it is an SOL loss, a very clear, stamped version of an SOL loss. Every mistake is highlighted, and every mistake is so punitive. It's to the point where every time they make a decision that doesn't go right, it ends up helping the other team. And it's just really sad. You go from 6-0 down to 13-0 down, and it feels like it's insurmountable. And that's what's crazy is that, and it's not terribly unexpected. I mean, Ben Johnson's new. He's done well for the first 4 games. Now he got taken to school by Bill Belichick. And then just quickly on Matt Patricia, they talked about it a little bit on the broadcast. Bill Belichick, when he worked with the Lions and coming up, he worked with the offense and offensive line. Matt Patricia is just really doing everything similar to Bill Belichick. Now, does he have acumen calling plays and completely running an offense? No. But he's worked with offensive lines. He's worked with the offense. He's not a complete idiot. This guy is smart. This guy knows the info. The issue at hand was he's not a people person.
And if you don't believe he's smart, he'll tell you he's smart.
Exactly. And what we needed was Matt Patricia's brain inserted into Dan Campbell's personality. Now you could have a total package. It's crazy because you now swung to the other side where you have this stubborn football coach who trusts things that his eyes should tell him, hey, it's 4th and 9. Okay, just kick it away and just see what happens. Everyone already thinks your defense blows. If you pin them down to the 9 and they go 91 yards, so be it. We already know your defense sucks. Don't make it so that you're the talk of everything going on. But, I'll ask you this. Do you think the team, if you got a chance to look at it, do you think the team kind of was flat after Savion Smith had that scary situation a couple plays into the game? Now, I thought he blew out his knee, the way it kind of buckled at first and he went down. But then the more they showed it, it kind of maybe looked like a concussion, kind of similar to what others that took a big hit. I mean, he basically buried his head into Hunter Henry, who's like a monster, like a Brock Lesnar type tight end, and he went down, and it was scary. Both teams clear out, and you're kind of razzled. Kind of like Mike Hart at Michigan, too, where kind of Michigan kind of had that emotional letdown when they see someone they care about. Did you kind of get that sense, too? In that maybe the fire, the piss and vinegar maybe went away when you see one of your teammates get carted off in an ambulance in what looked like a scary situation.
I mean, maybe.
It looked like they were freaked out.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the more accurate term. They did look a little bit startled, a little bit shaken. But at the same point, I don't necessarily think that's kind of what unraveled this team, what undid this team. I think it was bonehead plays. It was the fact that you couldn't convert a 4th and 1, and then you're going for it on 4th and 9, and the play call on 4th and 9 was just completely blown up, and you end up fumbling the ball. The next thing you know, you're down 13 to nothing, and you can't climb out of that hole. I feel like once it was 13-0, that game was over. I felt like the Lions had kind of checked out. I feel like the Patriots were basically in cruise control. And it was just, okay, how fast can we get this game over with before I don't know, we can move on to whatever else. Everybody was making dinner plans by the time the fourth quarter rolled around.
Yeah, it was tough to stick. It was tough to stick with it, absolutely. So now, I guess all I can do is implore you to look at it from no longer a wins and losses perspective, because most people will tell you, cuz the season was going to be 6 to 8 wins max. Maybe now it's going to be on the lower end.
But here's the thing. That was your expectation, right? Like going in, we knew there were going to be losses, and we knew this team was going to struggle. 6 to 8 wins, I think we're all like, all right, cool, we can deal with that. I myself wanted less than that because I want the quarterback of the future. That's neither here nor there. 6 to 8 wins, that means if they're going to win 6 games, that means they're losing 11 times. And I'm okay with that. All right? If you're going to lose 11 times, you already have 4 up on the board. My issue isn't so much the amount of losses that have already accumulated. It's the way you're losing them. That, I think, is the big issue. I think that is what is most startling about this team this year. It is the way they are performing, and it is how this team is losing. It's not like this team is losing on last-second field goals. It's not like this team is losing on bad penalties when you're down in and around the goal line, giving a team a whole new set of downs. It's not like you're losing that way. On Sunday, you got blown out and you got smoked, and a lot of that has to do with the play calls from your head coach. And I think that's the big issue. That's the problem. And I think that's why there's panic with this team.
In an offensive league, you would think you could stumble into 3 points. Who the hell gets shut out in today's NFL?
It's not like New England's that good of a team.
Right. They're
like, this isn't the Patriots that were winning Super Bowls a decade prior. This is not that team. Nowhere close to that caliber of team. Like, This is a team that is on par with the Jets. Like, think about that. This is a team, you got shut out by a team that is on par with the New York Jets. That is who you lost to. So you can think as poorly as you want about the New York Jets. The Jets are actually winning games with a rookie head coach. Well, not a rookie head coach, but a coach who was brought in the same time that your guy was brought in. Like,
yeah.
And they're doing it with multiple quarterbacks.
And they look good, dude. Sauce Gardner looks good. Breece Hall is awesome. You got your quarterback of the future. There's a lot of opportunities where I think Robert Saleh is like, thank God the Lions didn't hire me. But Dan Campbell, you ask the question, where are you at with the Detroit Lions? I think you just have to look at development. You have to turn your focus away from wins and losses, turn your focus away from Dan Campbell. You now know what he is. Now you have to operate under the parameters that this guy's crazy, and this guy might do some things that are going to be wild, and he's going to have supreme trust in his offense. So now you look at it and you say, okay, how do we get Aiden Hutchinson to learn some go-to moves to get some sacks and to really make the move instead of getting juked by the quarterback? How do we get more out of everybody? And that's how you got to look at it. Is you got to look at when Josh Paschal debuts, what does he look like? When Jameson Williams debuts, how does that look? How do the players that are getting reps take a look? Because I'm starting to feel like, okay, now some of the holdovers from Matt Patricia are going to start to be broomed out, including Amani Oruwariye and the likes, and some of those guys that you maybe, even a DeAndre Swift, you recognize that, hey, if they're not going to be available or not perform at the highest level, the Lions will find replacements. So I think that you got to take a look at what does when he does return, what does Savion Smith, what does Kirby Joseph bring to the table? How does Chase Lucas evolve? It's basically taking a look at the first, second, third year players and starting to evaluate how they do. Because I think and they know Jared Goff is good enough to start in the NFL. But they can conclude now, okay, when it comes down to when we're in the NFC Championship and it's 3-0 against a defensive guru, is he going to step up and make the play? And right now the answer is no. So what you do is you got to maximize what you got with him is you keep him one more year, you draft the quarterback, he sits no matter what, no matter if you and I are screaming at the highest levels, that quarterback, barring injury, does not step on the field in 2023. He sits and he just listens to Jared Goff break down film, how he sees the game, how he sees the opportunity, because Jared Goff can toss the ball if you give him time. But, of course, what happens, the offensive line has a kind of a C- performance, and he gets his ass kicked. And that is something that is, in essence, what's going to happen from time to time when opposing defenses take stock in what they want to do. So that's where I'm at with it. I'm going to pay attention. I'm still invested. I think that there are some pieces here that if Dan Campbell's not the guy, then you can start to build around for the next head coach. But what's crazy, cuz, is the way it's aligned. Everybody has to take a step back, take a breather, and remember, Brad Holmes probably odds on will last longer than Dan Campbell. Just Brad
Holmes was hired with Dan Campbell already in tow.
Which is crazy, right? Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. So, this might be the first strike on Brad Holmes, but there's an opportunity for Brad to say, look, I know what kind of player I want to bring in, these tough-nosed dudes. Okay, if Dan Campbell is going to be a stubborn X's and O's coach and not adapt, then he can move on and you can bring up somebody else, whether it be a Ben Johnson or you bring in a whole new staff to take a look at things from a more technical standpoint on the field. But right now, I'm okay with the talent that's being brought in. There are some misses, there are some wins, but the crazy part is, and I know we don't like it because everybody in the league has excuses, but and the reason why I predicted them to lose, when you don't have Amon-Ra St. Brown fully healthy, when you don't have DeAndre Swift, when you don't have players that are fully healthy, I mean, there are players going down left and right, and that's a whole other issue that makes it SOL. It makes it so that it's tough. This team, when healthy, can play good football. They can score points. They can just maybe potentially work around their shitty defense. But when they're going into games injured, and that's why this Dallas game is so juicy, because they have some weaknesses that the Lions can exploit, and it won't be a shutout, I can guarantee you that. But I want to see how they rebound. I want to see Chark come back, Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown should be closer to 100% because he was at 85%. I think that it does feel hopeless right now, but it's not as bad as it feels because of the fact you went into this game completely shattered and unhealthy, and now you're going to get some of the guys back, which I think will make things more comfortable. I think the Lions will surprise people and play a lot better against the Cowboys. But bottom line, I think it's a 5-6 win team when a lot of people were maybe starting to creep into the 8-9 realm. And that's okay. That's normal to be hopeful and to want to move faster. But I think if you just pay attention to the youth of the team, you stick with it. And I really do believe if you expect the worst and not get so emotionally invested in it, then I think you can enjoy it and take a look at things a little bit more rational. And trust me, I know I swing with it up and down. I get crazy too. But now a couple of days later, you just go, okay, let's take a step back and let's be a little bit more patient because it is 22 games in. And I know I don't believe no matter what, but I think we have to address it when you look at our confidence in Dan Campbell. Let's say it is 4 to 5 wins and he continues to make these moves. I'm of the opinion that no matter what, Dan Campbell is going to get a third year. He's not going to get treated in a way that others have. He signed a 6-year deal. I don't think unless it's completely worse and there's even more egregiousness where maybe the team looks like they don't show up and the 29-0 losses continue, unless it's a total collapse, which I don't see happening. But if it's reasonable, you get to 5 to 6 wins, you double your win total. I think Dan Campbell starts the year, at least year 3. Remember, he signed a 6-year deal. There in some way has been a built-in acknowledgement that this is going to take forever. But I don't think, unless it's this embarrassing, and it's something I will watch. We'll watch moving forward and we'll report on, has this team tuned him out? Because after 22 games, and you keep telling me, rah, let's keep doing this, and nothing happens, it's expected that some of these people are going to be like, dude, this guy is just another guy in here that's never going to get us anywhere. But I don't think in any circumstance 1% does he get fired before the start or the middle of year 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's coming back for a third year. I don't think any decisions will be made this year. I think he's got the rest of this season to try to piece it together. My big issue is after how last year ended, I was incredibly confident with him as a coach. And then you get the hype videos with HBO's Hard Knocks, and you're like, okay, cool. So now your buy-in is even deeper. And then you come out, you basically are playing against a Super Bowl caliber team, and you hang with them. I think we both think that this team could have beat them in week 1. You turn around week 2, you end up getting a win. Everything looks like it's going well. And then you have the last 3 weeks unfold. And at this point, to say that my confidence in Dan Campbell isn't shaken is a complete understatement. Like, I'm standing here scratching my head, and I'm like, okay, I get that you want to be aggressive. I love that. I think that's fantastic. I adore that you use analytics. I think that's fantastic as well. I think it's great. These are all things that you want with your head coach, right? I love that you love your offense and that you're going to play to the strength of your team. That's what good coaches do. But at the same point, it comes down to decision making. Like, you can't put your offense in a spot and expect them to pick up 9 yards. Like, no good coach does that. Like, Nobody. Good coach does that. Like, I don't care that you have the number 1 offense. I don't care if you're going against the very worst defense in the league. You don't do that. You don't put your team in a spot like that because chances are it just isn't going to turn out well. And that's the other thing. Football is a game where it's very complimentary, right? So, if your offense is going to go out there on 4th down like this team does, this team is on pace to set records for going for it on 4th down and converting 4th downs. So you're going to go for it on 4th down. We all know that you're not going to make it 100% of the time because it just doesn't work out that way. You are now going to set your defense up and put them in a position where the opposing team is probably going to start with better field position if you didn't kick a field goal and then kick it off, or if you don't punt it and pin them back. So you're putting your defense in a really disadvantageous position because now they're working with a shorter field. Your defense is horrible. As it is, your defense is really, really bad. Worst in the league. So why are you going to hurt your defense? I get that you love your offense. You want to play to the strength of them. But at the same point, football's complementary. You've got to help that defense out. You know, you want to try to bring everybody up together. It doesn't necessarily always work that way. Cool. Lean on your offense when your offense is out there. And if you get into 4th and manageable, go for it. Go for it all day long. I'm kind of cool with that. It doesn't matter to me. All right? Go for it. And then in the biggest spots, please don't change your mindset. Please don't change your coaching, your coaching direction. Don't make a hard pivot and go left when you've been going right all game. Don't do that.
All
right? When it's 4th and long though, and you're playing on a shorter field and you're on your half of the 50, why are you going to do that to your defense? You're just hurting your defense. Don't do that.
You were talking and the light bulb moment hit. God, dude, this is like straight up human shit. You remember the 4th down decision?
Human shit.
No, this is crazy. This is crazy because it bit him in the ass. You remember against Minnesota when he was going for it, and I believe it's Minnesota, he was going for it so often, and then he chose not to on 4th down. He got spooked. He got spooked. He said, I regret doing that. Now he's like, he overcorrects to the side where he says, I'm not going to let that happen ever again. I'm just going to go do it come hell or high water. Man, that's crazy. Yeah. He is so spooked by that decision that he made for not going for it. That someone has to get in his ear and say, look, we respect what you're saying. Now we understand why, in that you're way overcorrecting from the time that you spent hours kicking yourself in the ass for not going for it. But on 4th and 9, you gotta just kick the field goal and put it on the players. Stop making it about just being aggressive. Ask the question, can you execute it? Odds say at 4th and 9 against Bill Belichick, even if the odds say you can execute it 60% of the time, reality says, look, it's Bill Belichick. We got a first-year OC. We got Jared Goff. Amon-Ra St. Brown's hurt. Kick the fucking field goal. And then if the guy doesn't make it, we all can blame him. You know, no one's going to say, I don't think anybody on earth was going to come out and say, I can't believe you didn't go for it on 4th and 9. What we were saying is you were going for it all the time in a situation in which you were doing well. You were 4 of 6, and then you had a shorter situation. You went away from it. It doesn't mean go crashing headfirst into the pool. You know, have a little bit of a safety net. So, see, this is what happens, I think, when you have a former player that needs to take a step back a little bit and dial it down a little bit. Mix in a decaf of the 2 coffee cups, Dan Campbell. My God, one decaf, one regular. Think. Stop going balls to the wall. Stop throttling it at a high clip because it costs you. And look, if you don't have a kicker, you don't have a kicker. We know you wanted to be cheap with Prater. It's a debatable topic. You know, we spent, almost 35 minutes talking about Dan Campbell when there's 40 other things we could be talking about. He's got to grow. He can do it. I think it's in there. But bro, I think what would probably end up being the thing that would bother me the most is if Dan Campbell ends up getting fired and then he goes off to the Saints or he goes off somewhere else and ends up being a perennial winner. I think that would just be like something where Matt Patricia going back home doesn't bother me. Jim Schwartz leaving never bothered me. Joey Harrington coming in and dancing all over our graves never bothered me. If Dan Campbell goes on to have playoff success somewhere else with all the love and praise that he got here, that would be really tough. He's got to learn quickly here. He's got to put it in place here sooner rather than later.
This is my thing. I don't have an issue with what they did with Matt Prater, right? And I don't want to rehash something from a couple years ago. Matt Prater, to me, was on the downside of his career. I felt like the Lions did the smart thing and they got out in front of it instead of locking him up for 5 years and basically playing him until his leg fell off. The problem is, after that, you have had kickers in here that have been good, that have been really good kickers, and you've let them go. Like, at our fantasy draft, I brought it up to you. I said, why are they getting rid of Riley Patterson? He's a really good kicker. This is a dude who came in and helped solidify and really stabilize that kicking position last year. You're like, well, Seibert's got a stronger leg. I didn't give a shit about that. It's can you kick the damn ball when the pressure's on? Siebert can't. Right. I've seen enough in him before the season even started. Yet they let Patterson go. Patterson's killing it in Jacksonville right now.
We asked the special teams coordinator. You know what he said, which is crazy because in some weird way, it's Lions logic, and of course it comes back to fuck them. They by the evaluation, Austin Siebert won. He kicked longer. He had the bigger leg in practice. So that was the way in which they they evaluated, and they said that they used their evaluation. Now, it's not to say that I agree with it. This is what was said. The Lions said when they were asked about why Siebert over Patterson, they said that they tend to extrapolate success on game days based on what the kicker does in practice. And all throughout practice, Siebert was nailing them. And in practice, Riley Patterson was shaky in training camp. He was all over the place, missing left, missing right. At the practice that was open at Ford Field, Siebert hit a 63-yarder. But you are absolutely right. When you look at it, this situation played differently than their evaluation. And that's where maybe you go outside of your evaluation. You say, look at the numbers. When Riley Patterson, and you asked a great question, and I just gave when I talked to you about it, I just gave you the answer, but now I get a chance to elaborate on it. You're absolutely right. In the games, there are times when maybe, you're in practice and it's early or later and you're not with it. But last year in the games, Riley Patterson was great from 40 to 50. He didn't miss. Now, does he have the leg to potentially kick 50-yarders and beyond? If he doesn't, you now know that, but he's still a young player that you have no money in. I think people would have been far more willing to accept that he missed kicks in Detroit being a young cat than taking a veteran who, one, had been cut by the Bengals multiple times, had battled injuries before. Now he comes in and misses kicks and battles injuries again. I think the fan base would have been more supportive if they would have seen Riley Patterson start the year. That was a mistake. He wasn't the best in practice, but I think he deserved an opportunity, being that this is a young team. Look, they started Savion Smith at safety. They started A.J. Parker from the practice squad. So if you say, hey, if one of the beat writers that wants to be a smart aleck says, hey, Austin Seibert kicked better in practice, why are you starting this young kid? You can say, look, we have a young team. We have an opportunity to grow and develop him, and let's see if this kid can develop a 5 more yard range from 50 to 55. Or if you say, look, we know this guy is perfect from 40 to 50, we now know factually that we never have to try a 50-yarder. We'll go for it on fourth down. I think the fan base would have accepted Riley Patterson more because it fits into the narrative of starting a young cat. Maybe not the best in the world, maybe not the best in practice, but he showed you in the game that when the bright lights were on, he could kick it at a pretty high rate from 40 to 50, and you could have at least given him an opportunity to extend it out 51, 52, 53 yards. But Seacuz, do you see where football minds get so structured that they just said, oh, we like this guy in practice, he's going to kick well, and look what happened. You caught him, and now it's a kicking carousel, and that's what it's such a great thing to tie into SOL. That's what happens, is that when there's a player that performs well, he doesn't practice right. When there's a player that doesn't practice right, he shows up on the field, and it's never. Nothing ever correlates. Nothing ever works in tandem together. Like, it's so crazy when you look at it from a podcast. I call you, you answer, I hit record, you hit record, we put out a podcast. Could you imagine if all the errors that we had just compounded each other week after week after week, where one week my mic works and then the next week your mic doesn't work, and then at one time Skype cuts out on my side, and then we get strong internet and then it cuts out on your side? Or it would just be such the height of ridiculousness. I don't understand how these players, and you could tell, guys, go listen to Jamal Williams, Frank Ragnow, and Jonah Jackson. They look shell-shocked. It was one of the first times where you could start to see the losing kind of start to wear on the players. It's the Monday presser on October 10th. Monday, October 10th, YouTube Detroit Lions. Look at those pressers. Those players, it's taken a toll. Losing sucks. It drains everybody. They got to find
bad, because you know what happens after you start seeing on other faces. That's when they start checking out.
Yeah, you got to be careful.
And you can't have that with a second-year head coach.
You can't draft your way out of a losing locker room culture. Now, what they've done, step one, is they respect the coach. But if the losing culture permeates, it's going to be a long 12 weeks. But we do got to talk about it, in that the next step for this team is to also take a peek at the draft. You have to, because right now the Lions sit with the number 3 pick and the number 14 pick from the Rams. And I think the debate now is going to start to be had. And it's going to be juicy. It's going to be talked about here on the podcast. It's going to be talked about in every blog, in every newspaper. if the Lions cuz sit at number 2 or 3, which probably it's going to end up probably being around 5 or 6, should they, if they got two guys staring at, let's just go right to the top. They have the third pick and two guys are on the board from Alabama. Bryce Young or Will Anderson, the edge rusher. Who do you take? Because I'm of the opinion, my opinion, short and sweet, this offense is nice. You can round it out with a couple free agents and the development of the talent on this roster. You can carry it out for another year. You got Jameson Williams. Fuck it. That's basically your 2023 first rounder. In essence, the true nature of what you're getting. He won't be fully ready by 2023. That's your first round pick. For me, you take Will Anderson and you go all defense and you got to find the quarterback in the 3rd to 6th round. That's going to be special. You got to find the diamond in the rough. That's where your talent shines. If you need to use a first round pick, that's going to be tough because that in essence is going to indicate that you got to spend big dollars. You got to gut your team later on. If you can find a 5th round quarterback that can shine, you now can keep him for 5 years and he'll be just happy being the guy that's the underdog. If you draft, Joe Burrow, he's going to start wearing fur suits into Ford Field and start talking, and he's going to start asking.
And how great would that be, though? But how great would it be to have a Joe Burrow on your team?
Could you imagine? Like, that's the part that is funny is that in my mind, as I said that, I'm like, wouldn't it be great if there was a guy who'd wear like a boa and would be like the king pimp of Detroit? Because it's been so different for the 15 years of my adulthood where the guys have been so cookie cutter that after 2 years, he's like, I'm on a rookie deal. I want to renegotiate. And you're like, what? He's like, yeah, I'm the best in the league and I want to renegotiate right now. Or you know what I mean? That'd be awesome. Yeah. That would be so great. Like he shows up and he's got like a pimp walk and he's just like looks down at me and is like, why you get the question, John, you got to be careful. He's asking why is the podcaster asking him questions. I'm like, oh, that's I know it's insulting, but that's kind of awesome because Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford, when they talk, it just has a feel of like two boring dudes that want to get in and out as fast as possible. I would love a prick to be the quarterback of the team. That would be awesome to kind of match wits with someone like that. But what do you do? Because do you go all defense? Because you know what? I'm looking at it while I would love a top-end quarterback. If you can find somebody later and you can use your wizardry as a scout to find talent, I'm going 6 out of 8 picks are defense in the 2023 draft.
Look, I don't mind that. I think that's a great philosophy. I think that's how this team should build. Really defensively heavy. But if you're at the very, very top, you've got the best opportunity to draft your franchise quarterback. Something that this team hasn't had the luxury of doing in 2 prior drafts when they've had top 3 picks. They haven't been able to do that when they drafted Jeff Okudah, and they haven't been able to do that when they drafted Aiden Hutchinson because those guys just weren't there, or they went, in this case, defense first. Not working. Just not working. This team is still kind of stuck. Feels like it's a rudderless ship at times. I'm going quarterback first. And remember, you do have the Rams pick in the first round as well. Right now, that's looking like a top 15 pick. Hopefully the Rams keep losing. Matt Stafford looks completely shell-shocked, and I enjoy watching Rams football right now because they just keep getting pile-driven into the ground, and I think it's fantastic. Hopefully you end up with 2 top 10 picks, and I think you can go get your edge rusher, you can go get your linebacker, you can go get whoever you want with that second pick. But I would go quarterback, and then I would go best defensive player available. And look, I'm looking at some early mock drafts already. Okay, mm-hmm. You can get an edge rusher. Was it BJ Ojawolariye out of LSU? You can get an edge rusher there in round 2, and then if you wanted to, you can come back round 3. Looking at this early mock draft, Jack Campbell, linebacker out of Iowa, is still available. Also, Derek Hall out of Auburn is also available. You can go grab either one of those guys if they fit your bill. So I think there's a lot you can do, and it's sad that we're freaking 5 weeks into the season and this is what we're doing. This is where we're at. But I go quarterback first. You haven't had the opportunity to draft that franchise guy with those high picks that you've had in the past. It's time to get that guy in. This offense feels like it's complete, and it feels like it's ready for the handoff for whoever that next guy is going to be. The defense needs a ton of work. and you're going to really have to invest in free agency, and you're really going to have to spend a lot of draft capital to help bolster it. I go QB, and then I basically spend everything else on defense.
Yeah, it is crazy. 5 games in, and we had to look at the draft.
It's nuts, man. It's sad.
It is not. It's sad. It's tough because a lot of the problems that come about because of what's happened are just because the Lions are really tough, and they just struggle in a way that is really, really tough. It's just really, really, really tough at times when you look at what's going on with the Lions. That there are situations that sometimes are in their control, sometimes not. The injuries are really crazy. I hope that there's an opportunity for this team to potentially there's an opportunity to potentially turn the ship around and give the fans something more to do and to be happy with. But it's just tough with the Lions. It's been really tough in the way in which it's been done. So I'm disappointed at times with the Lions and how they do things. I'm disappointed that we are talking about the draft because it's a tough situation. But bottom line, when you look at the Detroit Lions, there's a lot of things that will start to be revealed. And at least now we've raised the questions, and now we'll have an opportunity to get some answers over the next few weeks regarding Aaron Glenn, Jeff Okudah, Amani Oruwariye, how the locker room handles things. Does Dan Campbell take the opportunity with some time to actually right the ship a little bit, kind of be more stable? Don't kick yourself to that degree. You have to be even keeled. And you got to remember, cause the aspect that we don't talk about a lot is these guys are working like 6 a.m. till midnight every single day, day in, day out, sometimes maybe even longer. Like, imagine yourself going and working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week for months on end. Your decisions on Sunday are not going to be all that stable at times, but I think you got to figure it out. You got to figure out, despite all the challenges of your job, all the craziness you got to put up with, all the injuries, you just got to have your team compete, play well, and prove that you're the guy that can give us some reason for hope. Don't give quickly. We can and we can sum it up with this. Most people are skeptical of the Lions. Most people are quick to say, look, what Dan Campbell has shown reminds me of Matt Patricia. And so the reason why when people question, well, why are the fan base not supportive? Why are they so impatient? The reason why is we smell Matt Patricia within 2 seconds. We're getting nervous. We don't want to wait 5 years to tell the fan base that we got Matt Patricia. We can start to smell it now. And if our alarms get raised, then we've seen a lot of bad coaches. The supporters in town have seen a lot of shitty football and shitty regimes and shitty football game day preparation. Jim Caldwell, Rod Marinelli, we're the experts. We know when our alarms get raised that shit's going down, and our alarms are raised. So there will be changes. Dan Campbell is not going to act like this. I think he got spooked by the decision that he made a couple of weeks ago. He now realized, shit, 4th and 9, what the hell was I doing? Go out there, get back to the basics. The team will be healthier. Compete against Dallas. Don't let Cooper Rush destroy you. And let's get back to the winning ways. And I think that then we can start talking about other things other than Dan Campbell. And we'll see where it goes. I hope they do bring you back. But if not, cuz you can check out mock drafts every other week or so. Maybe I'll do them in October and then ramp it up in November at All Lions. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast, type in 3 words, Detroit Sports Podcast, and our content will find you. We appreciate it. Adam and I love bringing you the content, bringing you the noise, breaking down all things about the Detroit Lions, and you guys have made us a small part of the Detroit community. And make sure you visit us on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. Hit us up. You guys have been telling great jokes. You've been bringing the noise, and we greatly appreciate it. Cuz, let's fire it up next week. We can talk about the Wings, Pistons, and some new things because the Lions are on the bye week. So stay tuned next week for the latest edition of Doc and Jock.